Hello everyone and welcome to Rob's Rogues for this special edition of Rob's Rogues. I'm sure down here in the bottom you've probably seen the subject of what you have clicked on here. So I've had a few new subscribers. Thanks for subscribing. This is something a little different. I'm still doing action figures, don't worry. I've still got a couple more, and I've got some DC UC figures to do before the end of the year. And of course it's Christmas time, so things are getting with, everybody has their little Christmas parties that they're going to, or work parties, or family Christmases. So as with a lot of us reviewers, the end of the year is kind of crazy to try and get through different action figures and different content that we're doing. So I've been kind of working on this, and I've been working on a podcast that I've been talking about. And as you can see, my good buddy here, Tim Drake. This is one of my favorite posters in my room, drawn by Tom Lyle. I love this poster to death. This was in a comic book store when I was just starting to collect comic books, and the store was going out of business, and I was always commenting to the owner, it's like, oh, I love this poster. And then as their last week, I came in to get one of my last couple comic books before I found a new place to go to, and he handed me the poster. He said, you're a big Robin fan, and Robin hadn't had his ongoing series yet. And this was, I think, right around the time of Robin 1 or maybe Robin 2, the little mini-series where Tim is training and then does like the Joker's Wild type of storyline. So it's kind of right in between. And I love this poster. It's one of my favorite things in my room. Which brings us to this video. Is I'm going to be starting a Tim Drake Robin podcast over at the BatmanUniverse.net. And as you know, with a lot of my videos, I always say for Rob and Rob's Rogues and the Batman Universe, you see it on my little banner. The BatmanUniverse.net is a great place to go to get all of your Batman and Robin information from. I'm also on a podcast over there called the Bat Fans Podcast. But I'm going to be starting my own podcast. It's going to be a Tim Drake Robin podcast. And this, for you, the YouTube viewers and subscribers out there, I want to give you something a little special that you might not get on the my Robin podcast, which is down here in the bottom in the description. You can go to the Facebook page and you can like it over there, and you'll see some content over there. And also the link for the Batman Universe is going to be down here. That's where the feed is going to be. And excuse me, you can also go to iTunes eventually and start downloading the episodes. But iTunes requires you to have 4 current podcasts before they start going through the downloading process. So it won't be till like episode 4 that you can start getting the iTunes feed, and I'll give you all that information. But the podcast is called Robin Everyone Loves the Drake. So any Seinfeld fans out there will get the Everyone Loves the Drake reference. But that's what I'm calling the podcast. That's going to focus on Robin Tim Drake, starting through Batman Year 3, and then we'll go on forward and eventually get to the Robin ongoing series that went 183 issues. And then, if everything works out like I hope it does, eventually we will end at Red Robin 24 before the new 52 started. So that would be a long line of podcasts to do. So I hope I can make it that far. But we're going to go through as many issues of the Robin series, and then other things that'll go through. So you'll, if you go over to the Everyone Loves the Drake podcast Facebook page down here, you'll get all that information. And I won't be posting stuff. I'll probably be talking to you some updates and saying, hey, the new episode is up, so head over to the BatmanUniverse.net. You can download it, or go to iTunes and you can download it. But what you're seeing right here, we're going to be talking about this. This is one of the most prized possessions in my collection. It's a Fisher-Price book. Right here is where the cassette tape would be. I've got it upstairs. But it is the Fisher-Price Library Story Books and Tapes. And as you could tell, this is Batman and Robin. This is Batman and Robin, The Case of the Laughing Sphinx. And some other books in this series were Superman, Wonder Woman, I'm reading them backwards here, Batman, and the Justice League. I never saw any of the other ones. You can look on YouTube and hear some of these. But what's going to happen here after this video introduction is over, it's going to go kind of into podcast mode as I'm, preparing to do the podcast, since it's an audio medium. Excuse me, I didn't want to put up, I'm probably going to put up some type of image or images. I haven't figured it up yet. But I've recorded the audio portion already, and you'll just be looking. It could be just this image or something. I haven't decided yet as I'm getting ready to edit all this together. But After the audio portion, I will come back on and I will just kind of give my thoughts on the book and kind of keep it in podcast form. So this is going to be episode 0 of Robin, Everyone Loves the Drake, and it's going to be only for you, the YouTube viewer out there. So sit back, relax, grab something to drink, and this is going to be kind of a little different, and you'll hear it once the audio portion starts. So this is what we're going to be talking about. I hope you guys enjoy it, and don't worry, there's more action figures coming up here on Rob's Rogues. And then, you know, we're going to have a Rob's Rogues, or have the Rogue Show Christmas special, hopefully coming up, but I've got to get my other co-host to know about that. So anyway, enough rambling. Sit back, relax, grab something, because this is going to be kind of in podcast length. I think it's going to run approximately 45 minutes, and there'll be a little video portion at the end of the podcast. So sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 0 of Robin, Everyone Loves the Drake podcast. See you in a few. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Robin, Everyone Loves the Drake. Actually, this is the 0 episode that is being recorded exclusively for you, the YouTube viewers of my Rob's Rogues page. And this is a podcast that I've been wanting to do to talk about my favorite Robin, Tim Drake. And I get asked a lot of questions from time to time. I should say a lot, like I have like 500 questions. It's probably 3 questions. But every now and then on my YouTube comments, I get the question of, Rob, why do you like Robin so much? And this book that I'm going to be reviewing and talking about, which you're probably seeing the image on your screen. As you're listening to this right now, I'm recording the audio portion of this before I record the video portion. So it's kind of like I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to be talking about in the video portion that's going to precede this, or actually before this, however you say that. But this book singularly is what made me a Robin fan. It's called Batman and Robin, the Teen Wonder, as he was normally in the 80s, but Batman and Robin in the case of the Laughing Sphinx. And I got this book in 1982. Some people will say this came out in 83. I think it has a publication date of 83. No, it actually has a publication date of 1982. So I believe I received this for Christmas. If not for Christmas, then my birthday. And this is one of those things that somebody will say, well, Rob, how can you not remember when you got something? Well, I was either 8 or 9 years old, depending on when I got this. I would have been 8 years old in 82, on the Christmas of 82, but my birthday's in February, so that would mean next year would be 83, so I could have been 9. So I was either 8 or 9. I want to say this was probably more of a birthday present than a Christmas present. I usually got books and just different types of things for my birthday, since Christmas was only, a month or so, after my, or before my birthday. So my parents were trying to figure out, okay, we're going to get him a bunch of Christmas gifts, and then in a month or so, he's going to have, give or take a few weeks, he's going to have a birthday. So I want to say this was probably a birthday present, but this book has been with me forever. I took this book everywhere. Car trips, going over to my grandparents' house. At some point, as I'm thumbing through it right now, I spilled something red up in the top corner of one of the pages, which really makes me sad to look at it. But even that being said, this book has, I would say, some wear. A friend of mine says it has some love in it. You could tell that I just took this book everywhere. And it's in still really good condition, other than what was ever spilt on it, which I've thought about trying to replace it, but these can get pretty pricey. But it is a Fisher-Price book, and it's geared towards kids. Like I said, I'd have been 8 or 9 when this came out. And I consider this my first comic book. It is drawn by Jim Aparo. It says a story by Andrew Helfer and illustrated by Ross Andrew, Jim Aparo, Joe Orlando, and Tatiana Wood. So I think everybody had all those people had a portion in drawing parts of this book. And later on, once I started reading comic books, I realized Jim Aparo. I recognized that name, and he's, I would say, famous for me for drawing Batman: Death in the Family, the Jason Todd story, and that was like, I remember reading that name when I was reading that book and other Batman books that Aparo had done. And I kept going, why does that name sound so familiar? And there was something very... It felt like home for me reading comic books. And I kept thinking, why do I like this version of Batman and Robin so much the way Aparo was drawing it? And then I remembered, I have this Fisher-Price book. And as soon as I looked at it, I was like, yes, this is probably one of my favorite versions of Batman and Robin and how they were drawn. On the front cover, Batman and Robin are both smiling. But what is interesting about this book, it's kind of a darker tale. Now, this is the other thing about this book, it's a Fisher-Price audiobook. So this came with a cassette tape. Some of you people may not know what a cassette tape is, but I'll put a picture up so you can see the cassette tape. I still have the cassette tape. It is very, very worn. I do have a cassette player in the house, and if I wanted to play it, I could. And I've recently thought about trying to transfer it over to an MP3, but luckily somebody else out there in the internet world has already done that for me, so I don't have to. But that was something I thought, oh wow, not that I'm going to sit back and listen to it over and over again, and maybe I would, but this is a book I have almost committed to memory. Like I said, it was to the point where I got my first set of headphones because of this book, because my father was like, he is just listening to this storybook over and over and over again. It kept telling me to turn it down, so I remember my dad coming home and giving me a set of headphones. He's like, here, plug this into your cassette player. So that way I could listen to it. And then I just got to the point where I didn't listen to the cassette. My mom's like, well, have you read it? And I'm like, well, I listened to it. Mom's like, why don't you try, reading it? And that was the step in the direction of starting to read comic books. And then I would just be reading aloud. And my dad like, can you read quieter? My mom's like, well, he can't put headphones on his mouth. And then I remember actually putting headphones on my mouth, which made my dad laugh. But and I would, voice act the book in my bedroom, and I would set up my action figures, and I would, play with them, and I would reenact this story. And this is one of the, I would consider a holy grail in my collection. Or maybe holy grail is not the right word, but God forbid if there would something happen to the house and somebody would say, okay, you only have, 2 minutes to grab anything that you can and get out of the house, this would be something I would grab. And somebody would like, wow, with all the comic books and action figures that you have. For me, I don't get to all of the action figures that you guys watch here on Rob's Rogues and doing the Rogue Show and collecting the chess pieces in the comic books. I don't get to any of that stuff without this book. This was the gateway book of me getting into the Batman universe. I mean, I was watching the 70s, the New Adventures of Batman cartoon show, and then the Challenge of the Super Friends. But far as a product that I could hold on to, because the Superpowers action figures didn't come out for a little while yet, but this was the first thing that I could hold on to, other than some tiny little figurines that I would have. But far as a book, and then me really wanting to pick up something to read came out of this book. And what made me a Robin fan is it's the origin story of Dick Grayson. And it's kind of told in a kid-friendly, I guess, sort of way. They really don't mention the word death, a tragedy, an accident happen. So it's up to the mind's eye of the listener or reader to kind of read between the lines and see what they're saying. And I remember asking my mom early on, just talking to her about the story, and Mom would say, well, do you understand what happened to Robin's parents? And something I'm also recording the actual first episode of the actual podcast, and so some of this may be kind of overlay that somebody's like, oh, he already talked about that, but some people aren't going to be able to hear this particular episode. It's just going to be for the YouTube fans out there. But what really made me love Robin as a character is the reason he was created. And I've kind of said before in different things that, I'm a big Detroit Tigers fan. I like the Lions and the Red Wings, and I like the High State Buckeyes. So whatever it was, the sport I was playing, for instance, let's say the Detroit Tigers, my favorite player was Lou Whitaker, who was a second baseman. I never really saw myself like, oh, I want to be like Lou Whitaker. I like to emulate his batting stance when I played, but what I wanted to do most of all was to play ball with him. How cool would that have been to actually play catch with your idol? Or, Barry Sanders, my favorite running back, or even Billy Sims before him for the Detroit Lions. But yeah, it'd be kind of cool to somebody say, I want to be just like Michael Jordan. I just want to be like Billy Sims, or I want to be like Barry Sanders, or whatever. I wanted to play ball. Or how would that would have been to be the quarterback that gets to hand the ball off to Barry Sanders. So that idea of Robin, that it should show that I'm a big Batman fan, but through the eyes of Robin, that Robin looks up to Batman. And how cool would that be to be swinging through the Gotham City skyline, and you look over to your left and there is Batman? How cool would that be, and what things could you learn from Batman? So that is what I got out of this book, and that is what made me become a Robin fan. So then I guess in a sense you could say, well, I guess, Rob, you do want to be Robin. So yeah, I guess it does work back that way, but that's what I latched onto as a kid. And having this mentor that, Dick Grayson has this tragedy happen to him, and here comes Batman, not only to save the day at the circus, to help him, or to, I shouldn't say save the day at the circus, but here comes Batman to come in and take this kid in, and Batman can relate to... Dick Grayson can relate to Batman. So I always thought that was great. So that in a nutshell is what made me a Robin fan, is having this mentor to look up to and train and work beside, and that the book is a Robin origin story. Had it been just a Batman origin story, I may be a full-on Batman fan. Not that I'm not a Batman fan, but I think you get what I'm trying to say. But in a kid's book form, the Batman origin story doesn't play real well. It's, coming out of the movie theater, or just the theater in general, and having your parents being gunned down and trying to work that way. You can... it kind of go on to more of a lighter side with Robin. Not that Dick Grayson's parents' death or any less tragic, but there's kind of ways to get around it. You can kind of say accident, or, that's... as I started getting older, I started realizing what happened, but just the brutal tragedy of somebody pulling out a gun and shooting somebody plays differently than... your parents are on a high wire, and, there could be an accident. You could slip and fall to your death. That could just happen. So I think it plays better that way. It's a tragedy. It's the car accident driving down the road, and you get hit by a semi. It just, just even the most recent tragedy with Paul Walker, an accident like that can happen. It, of course, changes the course of lives in anyone around him, or whatever that is. So I think in Dick Grayson's case, there was always that chance. It's not like his parents were, gardeners, and this fluke tree happened to fall over, or a bee stings, which I guess could happen. But you're not going to really get killed mowing the lawn unless something really freaky happens. But somebody that cleans windows on a skyscraper, there's that chance of knowing I'm doing a job that's very dangerous. I could fall to my death. You know, my parents are trapeze aerialists, and they tumble and flip in the air. If they miss grabbing one another and there's no net, there's a strong probability for death or to have your life completely altered. So I think it works a little bit differently, and bringing Robin into any story, yes, does lighten it, and I will argue as we go through the podcast that you can have a darker story with Robin in it. But being that this is a Tim Drake podcast, I didn't think starting the actual real podcast would work, of saying, okay, we're going to talk about Tim Drake, but first we're going to talk about a Dick Grayson story. I thought I would do it a little differently this way, that you can really kind of see why I became a Robin fan and what is about to happen here. I'm going to pause this little part of the podcast right here and cue up the next thing it's going to start. I heard Kevin Smith do this twice on his Fat Man on Batman podcast. I have the audio that I thought about just putting in here and letting you guys listen to, but he actually read a couple comics of Grant Morrison's JLA run. So what I'm going to attempt to do, and this could crash and burn like crazy. I know this is on YouTube, so I haven't decided if I'm going to put up images. It's kind of hard to find images from this book, as it's kind of old. People haven't scanned it. If you want to hear the actual audio drama, it's you could just look up Batman and Robin, the Case of a Laughing Sphinx, or just type in Batman Case of a Laughing Sphinx, and you can find the audio for this. But I thought it might be kind of interesting for me to read this to you, and this could crash and burn, and my podcast won't be like this. You'll get a synopsis of the comic, and then I'll talk about it and do it that way, so I won't necessarily read the issues of the comics. But for this one, I thought I would, just because this is near and dear to my heart. So anybody that wants to know why Rob loves the Robin character so much, be it Dick, Jason, Tim, Steph, Helena, Damian, Carrie, whoever Robin is, it comes out of this book. Published by DC Comics and Fisher-Price. This is the 1982, and Rob from Rob's Rogues and Robin Everyone Loves the Drake podcast going to read to you Batman and Robin, the Teen Wonder, in the Case of the Laughing Sphinx. Hold on to something, because this could be a wild ride. But first, this brief ad for an upcoming podcast I just ran across. Let's check this out.
R. What's that stand for? Robin.
Hello everyone, this is Rob Myers, and I'd like to invite you to check out my podcast called Robin, Everyone Loves the Drake, starting the first part of December.
Rob, are you going to take out the trash?
I'm right in the middle of recording an ad for my podcast. I'll do it in just a little bit, okay?
Sorry to interrupt Boy Wonder time.
Boy Wonder? I'm all man, lady.
Rob?
Okay, where was I? That's right. My podcast, Robin, Everyone Loves the Drake. It'll be hosted over at thebatmanuniverse.net. I'll be covering Tim Drake's origin story from the very beginning, starting with Tim's first appearance in Batman 436, also known as Batman Year 3, and hopefully going all the way through the Robin ongoing series, starting with issue 1 and going all the way to issue 183. 183 issues? Wow. Well, it's a good thing, because everyone loves the Drake.
You don't like the Drake?
I hate the Drake.
I love the Drake.
How could you not like the Drake?
Who's the Drake?
Who's the Drake?
The Drake is good.
All right, yeah, so that's the ad for my podcast. It'll be over on the batmanuniverse.net. It'll eventually be on iTunes, and what I mean by eventually, I guess the way iTunes does their podcast feed, you have to have 4 current podcasts available before the downloading process could start. So it won't be till like episode 4 that you'll be able to go to iTunes and start downloading it. And I recommend going over there and downloading some too. That would help me out, help the Batman universe out, and getting rates and likes and comments on the iTunes feed also helps out, all the podcast communities and everything like that. It keeps iTunes active in the podcast world, where they're like, well, people aren't really commenting. I guess nobody's really listening to it if you go to an offsite. So, just depending on however where you go, just make sure you like, click, subscribe, all that type of stuff. And I'll have the Facebook page. It's at facebook.com/everyone loves the Drake is my Facebook page for the Robin Everyone Loves the Drake. The title was too long, so I had to cut out the word Robin. So, but you could search it by looking up Robin Everyone Loves the Drake, and I'll put the comment or the link to the BatmanUniverse.net and my Facebook page for the podcast down below. So, something I did want to say before I get started here, with YouTube, a lot of us that review action figures and just do things in general with editing stuff, anytime you put music in it, there's things that are copywritten that somebody could get a hold of, and YouTube could say, oh, this is copywritten. I think Chapman Films has had original piece of music that he wrote himself that YouTube tried to flag as something being copywritten. I've recorded music myself, and I've had to say, this is my original piece of music, and I had to, go through a whole bunch of stuff. So I don't ever recommend putting up, music that's copywritten somewhere else, and YouTube will flag it and all that type of stuff. You can kind of get away with it in the podcast community, at least for now. So I'll be using music that way, but you able to say no infringement is intended, and things are working pretty good, at least in the podcasting world. But YouTube is heavily monitored, so I'm not going through all of the sound effects, and there is a score. I think the score is probably under public domain, that I could find the score that this is from, because I've heard it multiple times in different various formats, and not just necessarily Batman. I think I even heard this done with the Lone Ranger before, the music that's used to it. It was in a Bounty paper towel commercial, so it's a pretty famous piece of music. But I don't want to get flagged or anything like this. But what I've done is I've read this book from time to time. I'll pull it out just like I would any other comic book, and as I'm reading, I'll put on a Batman soundtrack. I have Batman Mask of the Phantasm soundtrack, the '89 Batman film, Batman Forever, Batman Returns, any of the Dark Knight soundtracks. The one I've been listening to mostly is the Arkham Origins and the Arkham City soundtrack when I've read this book. So if you want a little bit of mood music while I read this, maybe pause it here real quick, go find your Batman soundtrack, and just push play and sit back and laugh and listen to me do this. And I'm sure I may get comments of going, Rob, this is really cheesy. I don't know why you did it. I'm unsubscribing. I hope you don't unsubscribe. This is all fun, and like I said, this is a way for me to show you why I became the Robin fan that I am. So, without further ado, here is me reading to you Batman and Robin in the case of the Laughing Sphinx. I hope you enjoy. Story by Andrew Helfer. Illustrated by Ross Andrew, Jim Aparo, Joe Orlando, and Tatiana Wood.
Batman and Robin in the case of the Laughing Sphinx.
Full moon hung silently in the late night sky as a cool breeze swept through the grounds of the Gotham City Circus. The last show was over. All the members of the circus were asleep. Even the animals rested peacefully. It had been a hard day for both man and beast, and all needed a good night's rest. But inside a tent, a light still glowed brightly. Its occupant could not sleep. All he could do was sit and think and stare at the newspaper headlines. Inside the tent, Young Dick Grayson, a member of the acrobatic family called the Flying Graysons, knew his circus career was at an end. Earlier that day, there had been a mysterious accident. In the middle of their acts, Dick's parents had fallen from the trapeze, and suddenly, Dick was an orphan. Now he needed time to think what he should do. At first, Dick did not hear the strange sounds coming from outside the tent, but when the lions began to roar angrily, he was startled. He turned to listen. There was a hissing noise, like the sound of air being let out of a balloon. Then other animals began howling and growling. Cautiously, Dick stood up and peered through the flap of his tent. There were 4 men wearing gas masks. They had tanks strapped to their backs, and they were spraying the animals with some kind of gas. Their masks made their voices hard to hear, so Dick had to listen closely. What he heard shocked him. "When we finish spraying the animals with this gas, the only thing they'll do at showtime tomorrow is sleep. Yeah, after that trapeze accident and this stunt, the circus owner will give us anything we want." The more the young acrobat heard, the angrier he became. These men were responsible for his parents' accident. They were criminals, and they had to be brought to justice. Dick fiercely darted out of the tent, surprising the sinister gang. Before they could stop him, Dick kicked one of the criminals to the ground. His years of training on the trapeze had made Dick strong and quick, and now he was foiling the gang's scheme. "You rats! You can't go around hurting people and animals!" he shouted at the gang, but the odds were against Dick. It was 4 against 1, and the young acrobat needed help. Suddenly, out of the darkness swooped the Batman. The crooks were gripped with fear as the dynamic defender of the night descended upon them. Dick could see the anger blazing in the Cape Crusader's eyes, and was thankful for his mysterious appearance. "It's time to stop you criminals once and for all! Batman! Let's get out of here! Wow! Batman! Am I glad you showed up! 4 against 1 are bad odds in anyone's book, but I think this will help even things up a bit," as Batman said, as he landed a knockout punch to the leader's jaw. "Go get him, Batman!" shouted the courageous Dick Grayson. Without pause, Batman whipped his batarang around a criminal, causing him to slam into one of his partners in crime. "I finally got the goods on you, gentlemen, and you'll all be doing time in prison where you belong," Batman said. Dick watched the Batman with admiration. The costumed hero was as graceful as the Flying Graysons, but the Batman was not there to entertain. He was fighting for justice. Dick noticed one of the members of the gang sneaking up behind Batman, and with the grace of a gazelle, Dick jumped and somersaulted over Batman's shoulders right into the criminal's chest. Batman was amazed. He did not expect a mere boy to be capable of performing such a feat. A few minutes later, the police arrived to arrest the 4 defeated criminals. Batman spoke to Dick, whose head was still spinning from all the excitement. "Son, I've been tracking down this gang for a long time. They were wrecking circuses all over the country. When I heard about the trapeze accident last night, I knew this gang was responsible. I'm sorry I arrived too late to save your parents, but I wouldn't have been able to round up these criminals at all without your help. The animals will rest all day tomorrow, but they'll be all right. What about you, Dick? What are your plans now?" Despite his grief, Dick could hardly conceal the excitement in his voice. "I wanted justice, Batman, and thanks to you, I got it. But now, I'm all alone in the world. My parents are gone. Seeing you tonight makes me want to spend the rest of my life fighting crime. Please, Batman, can I help you?" "All right, son," Batman replied. "You deserve a chance after what you did tonight. I warn you, fighting crime is hard work, and you might not be cut out for it, but you'll have to decide that for yourself. Let's go!" Within moments, the Batman and Dick Grayson were riding along the outskirts of Gotham City in the turbo-powered Batmobile. The cool night air swept by them. Batman told Dick why he became a masked crime fighter. "You know, Dick," the Batman said, "I was an orphan too. Criminals were responsible for the death of my parents when I was just a boy. I swore then to devote my life to battling criminals wherever they may be. That's why I'm giving you this opportunity." "I won't disappoint you, Batman," Dick answered. Later, the two arrived at the Batcave, Batman's secret headquarters. All around them were the prizes and trophies he had gathered from years of crime fighting. "It's like a museum," Dick said, fascinated by the amazing collection. At this, Batman simply smiled and said, "You'll have a better chance to look at everything in the Batcave a little later. Right now and for the next few weeks, you'll be training physically and mentally for the life you've chosen. Let's get started." True to Batman's words, the next few weeks were painful and exhausting for young Dick Grayson, but they were also wonderful. Dick fought off his fatigue to do all the exercises Batman was teaching him, and he accomplished them well. The Batman, in his civilian identity of wealthy playboy Bruce Wayne, spent many hours training the young acrobat for the challenges Dick would face as a crime fighter. "Gee, Bruce, we've already run 5 miles. Can't we take a rest?" "Just 1 more mile to go, Dick. Then we'll see how well you do on the parallel bars." As the weeks passed, Dick could feel his body getting stronger and stronger. Each day he discovered muscles he never knew he had. Soon he could lift heavy sets of weights high over his head, where before he struggled simply just getting them a few inches off the floor. While Dick's body became stronger and faster, his brain became sharper. His eyes were able to follow the lightning-fast movements of the punching bag. In every respect, he was ready to work with his teacher in the war against crime. Dick knew the time had come. At the end of the training session, Batman told him, "Now Gotham City will get its first look at its new, young crime fighter." That night, Dick sat reading a magazine in the library of Wayne Manor. The article was so interesting that Dick did not hear Bruce Wayne enter the cozy room. Bruce held a costume in his hand. "I think that you are ready to wear this costume," Bruce said. "The only thing you need to decide is what name you will use in your crime-fighting career." Dick walked over to a shelf and pulled out a book about Robin Hood, a brave man who fought injustice long ago. "Ever since I was a little kid, Robin Hood has been my favorite hero," Dick said. "So I think I'll call myself Robin." "I think that's a good choice," Bruce said. "Now it's time to try on your costume." Moments later, Dick returned to the room. In the shadowy light, Dick hardly looked like a young boy anymore. Instead, he seemed tall, strong, and ready for action. After all these years of fighting crime by himself, the Batman had a partner. And with Robin the Boy Wonder by his side, Gotham City would be a safer place to live. Days later, Bruce and Dick sat sitting in the library when Alfred the butler walked in. Alfred was the only one who knew that Bruce Wayne and Dick were also the Batman and Robin. "Excuse me, sirs," Alfred said. "The bat signal is shining in the sky. You must be wanted at police headquarters." In almost no time, the Batman and Robin arrived at Gotham City Police Headquarters. Commissioner Gordon was at the top of the stairs waiting for them. "What seems to be the problem?" Batman said as he raced up the stairs. "There's been a kidnapping, Batman, and frankly, I don't know what to do about it," Commissioner Gordon answered. He looked worried. Come on inside, I'll show you what information we have." Inside Commissioner Gordon's office, a machine projected an image of an odd-looking man onto a screen. "This is Frederick Smythe," Gordon explained. "He's a world-famous archaeologist. He's the man who was kidnapped. Smythe just made the greatest discovery of his career while in Egypt last month. He found this." "The Laughing Sphinx," Gordon said solemnly. "And it is also missing. Hidden inside the Sphinx are 3 golden eggs. It's rumored that inside these eggs are the pieces of a map that will lead the owner to the greatest treasure ever imagined. Batman, you must find Smythe and the Sphinx before these eggs are smashed open and this greatest archaeological treasure is destroyed." "Have you got any clues?" the Batman asked. "Only this. It was received in the mail this morning." Batman read the clue. "You can't be an egghead to win at this game, where questions mean prizes and answers mean fame." He thought for a moment. "All right, Commissioner, we'll get on it right away. Robin, let's get back to the Batcave and feed this clue into the Bat computer." As the dynamic duo rode through Gotham streets, the Batman was silent for a long time. Then he said to Robin, "I've got a hunch this may be the toughest case we've ever faced." When the Caped Crusaders arrived at the Batcave, Batman headed straight to the gigantic Bat computer. Robin watched with interest as the Dark Knight detective sat down at the keyboard to type his questions into the talking computer.
I'm going to ask it which of our enemies could be responsible for this crime, and the machine ought to be able to tell us the name of the villain we should track down, Batman exclaimed to the boy wonder. In a few seconds, we should have our answer. The Bat computer clicked and whirled, lights blinked on and off, and suddenly it spoke. There are 4 possible suspects in this case, the computer said in a cold, mechanical voice. 4? Robin said, surprised. Quiet, Robin, Batman said sternly. Computer, continue transmission. Suspect number 1, the Penguin, also known as Oswald Chesterfield Cobblepot. The Penguin uses umbrellas in his crime. He is known for crimes involving birds. Since this case involves the theft of a sphinx containing 3 eggs, he may be our culprit. Suspect number 2 is the Joker, also known as the Clown Prince of Crime. This insane villain steals things that are funny or humorous or comic nature. Since the stolen item is called the Laughing Sphinx, the Joker may be responsible for the crime. Suspect number 3, the Catwoman, alias Selina Kyle, Jew thief, cat burglar. Her crimes usually involve cats, both big and small. Since the Laughing Sphinx is half cat, half human, the Catwoman may be the guilty party. Suspect number 4, the Riddler, alias Edward Nygma. The Riddler's main characteristics is his uncontrollable need to outsmart the Batman by using perplexing clues. Since the clue received by Commissioner Gordon is in fact a riddle, the Riddler may be involved. However, this computer can offer no answer to the riddle itself. End transmission. The computer clicked off. 4 suspects? Wow! What do we do now, Batman? Track down our first suspect, of course, Batman replied. To the Iceberg Ice Cube Factory, Robin, in search of our fine feathered fiend, the Penguin. The Iceberg Ice Cube Factory? It looks more like a fortress than an ice cube plant, Robin said as he pointed to the dark building which stood on the outskirts of Gotham City like a mysterious castle. I've heard this place is the Penguin's hideout, the Batman said. It's filled with all types of booby traps to stop trespassers. We've got to be careful, Robin. The Penguin may be waiting for us. Once inside the icy warehouse, the dynamic duo used their bat flashlights to find their way through the cold darkness. They searched through every inch of the frigid fortress, but found no trace of the Penguin. Just as they were about to give up, Robin spotted something. Batman! Through the trap door! I see a light down there! Good work, Robin! Batman said as they both jumped through the hatch. Look! Robin shouted as they landed. An umbrella! That means the Penguin must be around here somewhere. But before we go looking for him, let's investigate this clue, Batman said calmly. When they walked through the lit doorway, Batman and Robin found themselves in a huge freezer room. Behind the umbrella left by the Penguin stood a huge mountain of perilously stacked ice cubes. Careful, Robin, the Batman whispered. The slightest noise might send those ice cubes toppling down on us. Without saying a word, Robin pointed to the umbrella lying in front of the ice cube mountain. Batman knelt down and read the note pinned on the umbrella. I don't know you or what you do, but I'll find out when the game is through. Another riddle, Batman whispered, and it looks like the Penguin has flown the coop. We'd better track down our next suspect. At that very moment, the dynamic duo were startled by the sudden appearance of none other than the Penguin. The foul fiend stood at the freezer door, cackling hysterically. Wah, wah, wah. Looking for a laughing sphinx, eh, Batman? Well, you've come to the wrong place. The only thing you'll find here is a rather icy reception. Wah, wah, wah. With surprising speed, the Penguin turned to make his getaway. Batman! He's getting away! Stop him, Robin! Wah, wah, wah. Sorry, Dynamic Duds, but I'll have to give you the cold shoulder. Wah, wah, wah. Robin! The sound of that door slamming. It's loud enough to make the ice cube mountain. Batman's words were cut off by a rumbling sound as the ice cubes began to crash all about the daring crime fighters. Batman! The Penguin started an avalanche! We'll be buried alive! Robin shouted above the thunderous noise of the falling cubes of ice. If they were going to escape the Penguin's frosty fix, Batman would have to think fast. Robin, this pipe. Its freezing liquid may be our only hope. With astonishing speed, the Cape Crusader kicked loose one of the pipes lining the freezer wall, letting out a spray of ice-cold liquid nitrogen. Then, using his insulated gloves, he bent the pipe upward to face the falling cubes. The ice actually froze in midair as the liquid nitrogen stopped the deadly cubes in their tracks. We've got to hurry before we're put on ice Permanently. Soon, Batman and Robin were protected from the freezing avalanche by an umbrella of ice. This gave Batman a chance to get to a small charge of plastic explosives that he kept stored in one of the many compartments of his utility belt. Cover your face, Robin. This door is ready to blow. With a deafening roar, the explosive charge ripped the thick metal door off its hinges. When the smoke cleared, the Batman and Robin stood among the wreckage, ready for action. Come on, Batman! We've got to catch the Penguin! Wait, Robin. The Penguin's long gone by now. He flew off, thinking we were finished. Right now, we should head to Gotham City Amusement Park. I've got a feeling the Joker is up to no good there. The park should be crowded tonight. We'll need our whirly bats to see what's going on. Flying high over the park, the dynamic duo noticed nothing unusual until Robin spotted a mob of people running in fear from the Tunnel of Love. Something's up, Robin shouted to Batman. People don't run out of the Tunnel of Love unless there's something terribly wrong inside. Let's go down and investigate. We'd better find the cause of that panic, chum. When the whirly bats landed, the Caped Crusaders leaped aboard one of the boats floating through the Tunnel of Love. As the two crime fighters drifted into the ominous cavern, they could only see a dim light coming from far inside. The boy wonder shivered, but quickly overcame his fear and rode with the Batman down the peaceful stream that led to almost certain danger. Inside the tunnel, the masked detectives saw what caused all the fun lovers to flee the peaceful amusement park ride in such a panic. Along the walls of the tunnel, someone had placed lifelike statues of creatures horrible enough to frighten even the bravest adventurer. Frankenstein, Dracula, the Wolfman, and the Mummy were all leaning menacingly over the small boat as the Batman and Robin floated through the tunnel. It was a nightmare, but this couldn't be real, Robin thought. Then suddenly, one of the monsters moved. Batman! Those monsters! They're alive! Robin shouted his warning to the Batman just as the monsters jumped into the boat. Each monster had a look of hate in his eyes. All of them wanted to destroy the dynamic duo. Batman! We're sitting ducks! Not if we fight back, Robin. It's 6 against 2, but remember, they're only human. That takes care of 2 of them, Robin. We're doing just fine. Tackling this mummy isn't easy, but I'll have him tied up in a second. I hope you know how to swim, you reject from a horror show. Save the joking for later, Robin. This is serious business. This is no joke, Batman. That mummy short-circuited when he hit the water. These monsters aren't human, they're robots. And I think I know how to stop them. Just push them in the water. Within moments, all that was left of the monsters were sputtering ripples in the calm water. The dark tunnel was brightly lit by the sparks of the beaten robots. This type of sick humor has to be the Joker's work, Batman said. From the corner of his eye, Robin spotted a thin figure heading towards the exit. I think you're right, Batman, Robin said. And there he goes! Let's get him! Batman and Robin raced out of the tunnel, but it was already too late. By the time the 2 crime fighters had got to the exit, the Joker was gone. But he left a clue. Robin spotted it first. Look! Floating in the water. It's a giant Joker playing card. I'll fish it out. Maybe it could give us a lead in this case. On the other side of the card was yet another mysterious riddle. Robin read it aloud to Batman. The man you seek is both here and there. For on this night, he'll be on the air. The Cape Crusader thought for a long moment after hearing the latest clue. He finally said. We're getting closer to the solution. I can feel it. But we still need more answers. Suddenly, Batman realized what he had to do next. Come on, Robin, to the Batmobile. We're going to visit the Gotham City Zoo to pay the Catwoman a visit. At the Gotham City Zoo, all was silent except for the footsteps of the dynamic duo as they ran towards the lion house. When they arrived there, they found the outside of the cage empty. The lions were probably inside sleeping, Robin thought, but the door to the outside cage was open. Inside the cage was a lion tamer's chair and a bullwhip. On the chair was a large sheet of paper with a riddle written in a now familiar handwriting. Batman and Robin walked inside the cage to inspect the clue. Robin read it aloud. To find what's causing your grief, turn on the tube and get some relief? What does this mean, Batman? Robin asked. Just a moment, Robin. All the clues are starting to fit into place. Let me see. As the dynamic duo thought about their latest clue, they did not notice the Catwoman sneaking up behind them. She quickly grabbed the cage door and slammed it shut with a loud clang. The Batman and Robin were caught totally by surprise.
Ah, this is perfect.
Catwoman gloated.
The famous Batman and Robin, behind bars at last.
Batman pulled and tugged at the cage bars, but they would not budge. He and the Boy Wonder were trapped.
I've got a little friend of mine waiting on the other side of those bars behind you.
Catwoman purred.
I'm afraid he missed his supper last night, so you can imagine how much he's dying to meet you. Or is that eat you two? I do hope you all get to know each other very well. Ta-ta, dynamic dumbos.
The Catwoman said as she crept back into the darkness. Slowly the cage door behind the dynamic duo opened, and then out of the darkness jumped a gigantic, ferocious lion, eyes ablaze, fangs and claws exposed. The hungry king of the jungle sprang at the startled Batman. Never before had the Dark Knight detective faced such a savage opponent. The Batman was stunned, and although he tried to move out of the lion's path, the starving beast was too fast. In seconds, it was upon him, scratching and clawing at the Batman's costume. Robin, I'm pinned down. Can't move. Can't get to my utility belt. Hang on, Batman. I'll get the situation under control. Like an experienced trainer, Robin grabbed the whip and began cracking it behind the lion. Then he gently pushed the chair against the lion's back. Angered by this interruption, the lion turned to battle the brave Boy Wonder, leaving the Batman behind. Free to use his hands once again, Batman reached into his utility belt and tossed a sleeping gas capsule at the ferocious lion, just as it was about to pounce upon the Boy Wonder. Immediately, the big cat fell into a deep, peaceful sleep. Robin cautiously stepped over the sleeping beast to aid the Batman as he picked the lock on the other side of the now quiet cage. Thanks, Robin, Batman said. You saved my life. No problem, Batman, Robin answered, smiling. If you hadn't used that gas capsule when you did, I might have turned out to be dessert for our slumbering friend here. Once outside the cage, Batman returned to the task of fitting all the different clues together. The first clue mentioned a game, one that awarded prizes and fame for correct responses. The clue at the Ice Cube factory said that one player doesn't know the other player's identity until the game is over. The Joker's clue said that the man we were looking for would be on the air tonight, which means television or radio. But the last clue mentioned tube, which means TV. So when you put all the clues together, they tell us that Frederick Smythe is going to be on a TV game show tonight. Robin snapped his fingers. He knew the answer. And the only TV game show where contestants are trying to figure out people's occupations is, what's my job? Quick, Batman, to the television studio! As the Batmobile raced towards Gotham City television studio, Robin switched on the TV monitor built into the Fantastic Car's dashboard. What's My Job was just beginning. The announcer was introducing the show and its host. Robin listened closely to the voice. Live from Gotham City, it's time for What's My Job, the weekly game show that asks the questions, what do you do for a living? And now, here's the host of our show, Edward Nygma! Batman, Robin shouted, hardly able to believe his ears. Edward Nygma isn't the host of What's My Job. Edward Nygma is... Yes, I know, Robin, Batman answered calmly. Nygma is the Riddler. He's probably holding the entire staff to that television station hostage, so we can pull off this crazy stunt. Keep on listening, Robin. We've got to find out what his plan is. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Edward Nygma, your extra special host for this edition of What's My Job. Tonight we have a very special guest. Hidden among our 4 contestants is Frederick Smythe, the world-famous missing archaeologist. Is he hidden underneath the mask of Horus, the Egyptian hawk god? Or Babastes the cat? Or Enumus the jackal? Or perhaps Amina the ram? Well, whichever it is, we'll find out, and when we do, Mr. Smythe will watch us crack open the 3 golden eggs of his laughing sphinx to show the nationwide audience what treasures lay within. To help us determine which of our guests is really Mr. Smythe, we've called upon the distinguished staff of McNulty's Pool Hall Gymnasium to assist us in our investigation. Gentlemen, you may begin your questioning. It's time to play What's My Job? Robin stared, open-mouthed, at the small television screen. Batman, that guy's really nuts, he said. I'm not so sure, Robin, Batman answered. I fought the Riddler before. He may be a little off the wall, but this kind of display seems more like the Joker's style. There's more here than meets the eye. The Batman paused a moment, then added, Turn off the set, Robin. I have a plan. Only if we could get there in time. 20 minutes later, What's My Job is reaching its climax. Well, contestants, Enigma cackled, you've managed to stop our panel of, experts. So, what else can we say except, it's time to unmask? At this cue, the contestants lifted off their masks to reveal themselves as the Penguin, the Catwoman, and the Joker. Frederick Smythe, the fourth contestant, was tied up and gagged, so one of the panelists got up and pulled off his mask. The audience was stunned by the appearance of the villains. And now, Enigma continued, since everyone else has revealed himself, I guess our television audience won't be too upset if their favorite game show host turns out to be none other than the Riddler. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the highlight of our show. Let's crack open the eggs of the Laughing Sphinx! The studio audience was horrified, shocked. They sat glued to their seats, but each viewer hoped that someone or something would put an end to the villain's evil plan. Meanwhile, the villains gloated as they prepared to smash the eggs. I must admit, Joker, old buddy, your suggestion that we team up was superb. Yes, Joker, but why do we have to go through all this TV stuff? What difference does it make to you? I enjoy a little media coverage every now and then. As if in answer to the audience's silent prayers, the dynamic duo suddenly swept into view. Now the four newly teamed villains were shocked and could only stare up in disbelief as the Caped Crusaders were thwarting their evil scheme. I thought you got rid of them, said the Joker. And I thought you did, answered the Penguin.
I thought I finished them off,
said the Catwoman. What does it matter, groaned the Riddler. We're all done for. The audience shouted with glee as Robin smoothly swept by the four arguing villains, plucking up the Sphinx and its eggs. Sorry, I gotta run, fellas, he shouted down at the flabbergasted villains, but I've gotta take my Sphinx for a walk. Meanwhile, near the ceiling of the television studio, Batman was planning the final downfall of the evil team. Seconds after the Boy Wonder made his television debut, Batman cut loose the final cable holding up the huge What's My Job sign. With a tremendous thud, the sign crashed down around the villainous crew. The audience went wild. Give him one for me! Clamor those crooks! Knock their blocks off! Soon the entire audience was shouting, Batman! 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 As Batman swung down to the stage on his batrobe, the audience rose and gave him a standing ovation. Then Robin returned to toss a final batarang around the four beaten evildoers. Batman smiled and waved at the cheering crowd. He was not used to being a television star, but he accepted the audience's cheers and applause graciously. Is everything okay? He whispered to Robin. Everything's fine, Batman, Robin answered, grinning. I untied Smythe. He led me to the rest of the crew. They were locked up backstage. The Sphinx is in safe hands once again. This is the last time I listen to one of your crazy team-up ideas, Joker. That goes double for me. After the show was over, Commissioner Gordon arrived with the police to take away the four criminals. Gordon was anxious to congratulate the Caped Crusaders. I got to the studio as soon as I could, but it looks like you fellas beat me to the punch. You might say that, Robin answered. Well, Gordon answered, it was a great show, Dynamic Duo. I saw it all on TV with millions of other viewers. Gotham City will sleep safely tonight because of you two. Whew, Robin said. What a job. It's all in a night's work, Batman answered. You know, we did 3 things tonight, Robin. We rescued Frederick Smythe, and we saved the Laughing Sphinx from the clutches of 4 of our deadliest foe. What's the third thing? Robin asked. Well, Batman answered, a grin appearing on his face. We probably made What's My Job the most popular game show in television history.
Oh, brother.
Robin groaned.
Let's go home, Batman.
Robin, you just read my mind.
All right, did you guys like it? I hope you did. I had a really good time putting this together and getting my podcast feet wet. It's a little different doing a podcast by yourself, and some of the my co-podcasters on the Bat Fans will be coming in from time to time to do the podcast with me on certain issues of the Robin comics or even Batman comics that we will talk about that'll have Tim Drake in them. They said, yeah, I would love to be part of it. And maybe some guys from the Batman universe will stop over. Tom Panarese does a really good Nightwing Dick Grayson podcast called Taking Flight, and he kind of hits on all the Robins, but he's kind of a Robin, and he's more Dick Grayson Nightwing in general. So he has covered some of the Tim Drake stuff, but he's done Jason Todd. He's going to be doing Damien and Stephanie. So, but like I said, I love this book. Yes, it's cheesy, and I'm sure with what you guys just heard, if you've made it this far. With me doing all the voice acting, and like I mentioned, I could have put in the audio tape and transferred it to the computer. I have an MP3 of it, and you could have just listened to it. And but being that it's my channel, I thought it'd be kind of cool to read it. And I've committed this whole thing almost to memory. I've listened to it so many times growing up, and have just read it. And like I said, if something would ever happen to the house, and they said, "Rob, you only have a few minutes to go grab some stuff," I'd always say, I'm going to grab a box and just start raking figures and things in, but I'm grabbing this. Yes, it's probably not worth anything, but to me, sentimentally, it's what made me a Robin fan. Some cool things in here that you might have picked up on as I'm kind of looking at it through here. It's kind of hard to find images online of the book, and this is probably not doing it really well, but it is very Jim Aparo art. There's other people that have done certain parts of panels. Maybe somebody only did backgrounds. I don't think he did the entire book, but there are definite panels. This is easily Jim Aparo right here. I wish it was kind of made note that page 3 and 4 is such and such, but just being a fan of Aparo, and that's kind of this was always kind of my Batman and Robin, my go-to. I like the look of this Batman, just the way he was drawn, and Robin as well. Something I've always thought was weird that in the comics in the Batman Year 3, and depending on which version of Dick Grayson's origin that it is, in some of them it's almost like Batman shows up, saves him from or not saves him, but it takes him right in and is like, you know what, you want to be a crime fighter? Come along with me, and is instantly going... He's taking this boy in. So, I mean, the story for a kid, it moves really slow without going through an adoption process or the ward process. I'll talk about it in Year 3 when we get there, but it's pretty quick that Bruce is like, you know what, I'm Batman. Let's go to the Batcave, and you can be help fight crime and all this stuff right away. I think that happens really quick, but we'll go more into that in episode 1 of Robin, Everyone Loves the Drake comic podcast. But I just always thought this was cool, the whole training montage that they're going through with Bruce and Dick is pretty cool. Just as a kid, I was just fascinated, and there are sound effects and music score, so I thought this was fantastic. An image that I've always liked is Dick putting on the costume for the first time, and they don't do it much anymore in the comics, but a lot of times in the 80s you would see Bruce Wayne, and the shadow behind him was always a Batman. I always thought that was so cool. I remember being a kid going, how does he do that? Like, oh my gosh, he's Batman. You know, you better not be in a dimly lit area and a spotlight show on you because somebody's going to know you're Batman. The version that Dick says for being Robin comes out of Robin Hood, which, you know, depending on which version, pre-crisis, old crisis, middle crisis, after crisis. So you're going to get a crisis headache trying to figure out all the different origins of all the different people, but we're just going to let that go and just enjoy the stories. The Alfred in this is kind of funny if you listen to the audio drama. He kind of talks like this, sir, excuse me, the bad signal's like, Alfred sounds like a tool, you know, like the Michael Caine or even Michael Gough from the 4 films with Keaton, Val Kilmer, and Clooney, but... I thought it was kind of cool for supposedly one of the first cases Robin worked on that he gets to go up against the Joker, Catwoman, Penguin, and the Riddler. They're all in their classic costumes. Hopefully you can see all those, which I love. The Icebird Ice Cube Factory. So this is before the creation of the Iceberg Lounge. They actually thank in the credits here, if I can find it, Ice Cubes by Icebird Ice Cube Factory, and it's copyrighted. So I need to do some homework on it. It's been a long time since I had checked that out. Was there Icebird Ice Cubes that they used? Like, oh, that'd be good for the Penguin. Or is it just a clever trademark for the Penguin? So the Joker has very little dialogue in this book. It's basically Batman and Robin, but as far as the villains, it's the Penguin and the Riddler that has the lion's share of the dialogue. Even though the scheme is hatched by the Joker, he only has a couple words of dialogue, and the voice actors that they had to do the Joker, just, it sounded really weird. I mean, these aren't going to be Academy Award winning voice actors, and surely mine's not, but I always thought it was kind of poor. I expected the Joker to be a little more sinister and maniacal, and he kind of sounds cheesy. Catwoman has the least amount. She only has like 2 or 3 lines in the whole book, which if you listen that far, hopefully I conned my wife into reading the Catwoman lines, and she's like, really? I said, yeah, we'll see if anybody comments on it. So yes, my wife read for Catwoman in this book. The Tunnel of Love sequence out of here, would be quite a while before I read The Dark Knight Returns, and when I was reading The Dark Knight Returns, and even watching the cartoon movie when it came out last year, but reading The Dark Knight Returns, I go, why does this sound so familiar to me? That I'm going through the Tunnel of Love and having a fight in there, and I would just read it. I would start going through a lot of my comic books, and then it dawned on me, I have read A Tunnel of Love in there. So this is 1982, and I don't believe A Dark Knight Returns was out in 1982, and I'm sure, before I get my facts all screwed up here, a little bit of fancy high-tech editing there before I misspoke, depending on where I splice this video together. I was corrected. The Dark Knight Returns did not come out till 1986, and this book came out with a copyright date of 1982, if you can make that out there. So this Tunnel of Love comes out before the Tunnel of Love fight at the end of The Dark Knight Returns. So I was right in remembering that I thought this just sounds so familiar. Now granted, the Joker is not killed in the Tunnel of Love in here, and it's the Frankenstein monster and the Mummy and the Dracula, and you can kind of see the Joker right back in here. So I just thought that was funny. So part of me goes, was this not a tip to the hat to the Fisher-Price book? I'm sure it's not, but it's a funny coincidence nonetheless. The riddle in here, I don't think there was a TV show of What's My Job, because it's not copyrighted anywhere in here. Boy, it's a hard sentence to say. But there were types of game shows like that. So you're having to put together this riddle in your head and trying to figure it out with Batman and Robin. And you never would have thought this riddle out because it doesn't make any sense to you, but it makes sense in the world that it is. Again, it's a kid's book, and I'm being all philosophical in this book. But this scene I always thought was really cool of Batman and Robin swooping in. I love the classic look of these villains. Catwoman, I think I like her better without the green cape, but this was my first introduction to Catwoman, and the Joker and the Riddler and the Penguin. These were 4 of my favorite villains, again, because of this book. And which I always thought was kind of cool, I noticed right away, up here at the very top, as the Batmobile is racing away at the end, see the Fisher-Price logo up there. Some podcasts rate the books and say, I would give this 4 out of 5, times Batman and Robin swing and save the day. This book, I can't rate it. Maybe I'm biased to it. Everything that you see here on Rob's Rogues, of me just talking superheroes in general, especially Robin and Batman, and I always say Robin first, Robin, it comes out of this book. I wouldn't be doing the Rob's Rogue show or the Rob's Rogues channel here, or being part of a Batman podcast, or doing my own podcast if it wasn't for this book. Yes, I saw the 60s TV series run in syndication of the 70s as a small kid, and then, you know, the 80s and all that type of stuff. But it was this book. I took this book like it was my security blanket. There's dings and divots in here. Like I said, I spilled something at one point. My wife is like, well, maybe we got to think about replacing that for you. And I go, but it wouldn't be my book. It'd be a copy of something, and I would keep the other one off on the side, and I would still pick this up. And to this day, even though it's for kids, I still pick this up every once in a while. I get a chuckle out of it. It's cheesy, but I pick this up, and then that leads me to picking up actual comic books. As I grabbed just Aquaman off the corner here. But I don't get to comic books and getting to this guy, Tim Drake, in starting my own podcast without this book. So this was something completely different to do on Rob's Rogues. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I hope you guys lasted this long. I'm now going to shut this off and edit this all together. And this could be an hour where somebody's like, oh my gosh, Rob, so boring. I hopefully you don't think it's boring. I've enjoyed doing it. I've enjoyed sharing I wouldn't say a private piece, but a real personal piece, and what made me a Robin and Batman fan, and a Robin fan in general, was this book. This is what led to everything else. And my wife goes, I hate this book. This made you the way you are. But she understands why. So thanks for watching Rob's Rogues. We've got more stuff coming up on Rob's Rogues. Hopefully we'll have a Christmas episode of the Rogue Show. And make sure you go over to the BatmanUniverse.net to check out all the amazing stuff that they have over there, including some wonderful podcasts, and soon mine. I'm going to be wrapping it up this coming weekend, and the first show will launch soon, and I'll let you guys know when that's up so you can go check it out. And you can check out all the links are down below here for the BatmanUniverse.net and the Facebook.com/EveryoneLovesTheDrake for the Robin Everyone Loves the Drake comic podcast. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll get back to some action figures in the next video. See ya. Bye.